Hi, I'm Ed Parcaut, your host of Helping the Brave. Let's bring in our guest today, Brian Moody. Thank you so much for coming on Helping the Brave.
Hey, Ed, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Hey, no problem. See, I told you I was busy. I'm tired. I don't even remember how to do anything anymore.
It happens. It's
Yeah.
only
So, all
Tuesday.
right. Yeah. God, it seems like a Friday already. All right. What service were you in?
Air Force. So I've been in Pennsylvania Air National Guard my whole career.
Okay. It's amazing how I run into the National Guard a lot on the East Coast more than I do on the West Coast. People I
Yeah, I wonder
interview.
why. I know that for Pennsylvania, the Army National Guard was like as large as a division. It,
Yeah.
it it actually had a ranking as one of the largest militaries or largest armies in the world at one point in the pretty recent history.
Right. I just the when I interview on the East Coast, it is I'd say out of 4 guests, 3 of them are in the National Guard.
That's wild.
Which, they changed the service the way to be more, and I'm not saying you're reservist, but to go to reserves when Obama was in, just, "We don't need you. We'll put them in the reserve. We'll never call you up." And, of course, everybody who was over in Iraq, 70% of them were the reserves.
Oh yeah, we're used pretty intensely.
Yeah.
Just as much on the deployment side probably as active duty, or not far off.
Right. And that's why when somebody asked me when I was getting out of the Navy, "You gonna go in the reserves?" I'm like, "Heck no." I didn't say it that way. But because I could get called up again. It's like, "No, no, you'll never." Yeah, okay, whatever. Everybody I knew got called up.
Yeah, especially now we're just totally integrated. I mean, you were in. I think I've listened to some shows from the '80s, mid '80s.
Late 80s, early 90s, got out in early 90s.
Okay, yeah. So about that point forward, man, we get used just all the time.
Right. But that's when they cut everything down just to, we don't need as many. We're not, the Cold War is over. The dummies.
Till the next one.
Yeah, until you do something stupid and put a president in place like this. Anyway, we'll move on.
Yeah, you're not wrong though.
Well, yeah, you have a weak commander in chief, and then the world falls apart. So, I always tell people if you're going to go down a bad neighborhood, do you want to be with a nice guy or an asshole? I want to be with an asshole because that way I don't have to worry about people messing with us.
And if he's a nice guy, I hope he's at least heavily armed and willing to take action.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
You could be nice and aggressive, right? We
Right.
don't have either.
I don't mean that wrong, but most people won't mess with even. Oh, he's crazy. Don't even mess with him.
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
All right. So, how long were you in the National Guard?
I'm still in right now. I've got just over 22 years, coming up
Wow.
on 22 and a half. So I enlisted in 2002 during my third year of college.
Wow. And are you full time in like active service or are you in the reserve part?
I just spent the last uh, 6 years about as a full timer there. So when I first enlisted, I finished college. Um, I was a traditional reservist all the way up until I went to pilot training. So I commissioned in 2009, 7 years in, and came back from that. I was actually a school teacher, so I went back to being a traditional, working as a school teacher, working as like flying one night a week, and it was pretty busy and deploying all summer, pretty much every summer through all the GWAT garbage. Um, and then I went full time in 2017. I just left that full time service in February
Wow.
to focus on my business.
Wow. Uh, and you said you became an officer or
Yep,
enlisted to
2009.
be
Yes.
2009. And did you go, how does that process work? Was it because you had a degree, you just got your degree, or did you go through a certain, sometimes they have different ways of doing it. So how did you do yours?
Yeah, with the guard, see, I was trying to get a pilot slot, which is what I ended up getting. So for us, because you're going to fly at your unit, it's a little bit different on the competitive side. So they actually hire all of their future pilots straight up. So we interview, they might interview 15, 16 people a year, take 2 to 4, depending on what the needs are. So I actually interviewed a couple times. I didn't get selected the first time, and finally was selected. Actually, on my third interview, I was selected. And at the time, the Air National Guard had a little. It was called Academy of Military Science. I used to like to tell like all the Academy nerds that I went to Academy East. They loved that because it was like a 6 week program that was designed because almost everybody that went in the guard was prior enlisted, so they could kind of skip all of the the early stuff of marching and learning commands like that. It was kind of like you already got all that in basic training, so they went straight on to what you needed in a short program designed to get those people at the time back right back into their civilian world in a short burst. And that's since morphed, and now everybody goes to the standard OTS. But yeah, so I used to like to tell those guys I went to the Academy East, 6 weeks, same pay.
All right, when you were deployed, what did you do? You flew, right? Was that basically what you did all the time, or what?
My first deployment, I was a comm troop, so I was it was called ground radio. So I fixed electronics equipment for the most part, but we were kind of like the everything falls on you world. I mean, if they didn't know how to categorize what was broken in comm, they sent it to our shop. So I first deployed to Al Dhafra, right outside of Abu Dhabi in UAE. That was 2005, and then since then it's been either every other time was as a pilot. So it's either Qatar or Afghanistan.
And what did you fly?
KC-135s, refueling tanker.
And how was that? That's perfect what you wanted to fly?
Yeah, well, it's kind of wild. I didn't even know I wanted to fly when I joined. It was when I joined, I ran across a guy who in Pittsburgh here we call it Pittsburghese. It's kind of like a sloppy conglomerate of languages from this melting pot that the Steel City used to be, and it doesn't sound very fluid when people speak. And I'm sitting in the recruiter's office, and a lieutenant colonel comes in, and he had the deepest Pittsburghese ugly accent you could imagine. And I remember I looked, and I was just like, I didn't even know. I said after he left, I said to the recruiter, "What's that guy do?" They're like, "Oh, he's a pilot." And I said, "How do I become a pilot? Like, if somebody who sounds like that can fly, I think I can fly." So all I did, I focused solely on getting a pilot slot at my unit. So yeah, it was exactly what I wanted.
Wow. And getting out, you're not flying in the civilian world. You're doing right, or are you?
I kind of am. I was hired right at the beginning of the COVID mess. So I was supposed to go to training with American Airlines in March of 2020. And then that got canceled the day before class was to start. So I've actually been on a long-term military leave since. But that since
So
I've
that's over.
resigned in February, that kind of that's coming to a close. So I have to make a decision here soon.
How long do you have where you can go from military flying to civilian flying? Is there like a period of time, like do you get 1 year only not flying, or y- is there any time period?
As far as like the military leave, you mean?
Well,
When?
when you get out and you want to be a
Mhm.
pilot for American Airlines or whatever, is there a period of time like, okay, after 2 years or 3 years, you have to redo everything again because you haven't been flying?
Yeah, they usually want some level of currency, but all of that fluctuates with the market. So
Right.
there was just this huge pilot shortage 2 years ago. You could get next to no currency and get picked up, but usually they want you to have a couple 100 hours of recency. So what a
No, I'm
lot of
just
guys do is they'll step into one of these small gigs, fly for 6 months, and then reestablish their recency and apply to the commercial
go,
carriers, Delta, United, American.
go get some of those little charter planes up in Alaska flying supplies in.
Dude, those guys are nuts.
Yes.
They're absolutely nuts. I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah, well, they're probably all Vietnam fighters.
They probably are. You're right.
Yeah, or those
Nope,
chopper pilots, man, from Vietnam were crazy. They
they
had to be.
were
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Because unfortunately. All right, what's next for you? I know we just kind of I've been all over today. I apologize. Uh,
No,
but
that's all right. That's it.
we talked a little bit about infinite banking when we first talked. How did you get into
Mhm.
that? Or you want to tell us how you got into that over the last, because I'm sure it's not something brand new for you.
Yeah, it's not brand new. Actually, I guess it's about 8 years ago, 7 years ago, I on a deployment where there's nothing to do except for read, fly, and work out. And I would take an iPad to read books, and it kept popping up this book called Becoming Your Own Banker in the recommended for you section on the Kindle app and through Amazon, and it sounded hokey, like becoming your own banker. You can't become your own banker. What does that mean? And I'd always been kind of a
Who was the
student of
author?
personal
Who was
finance.
the author on that one?
The author is Nelson Nash,
Okay, that was a different guy. Okay.
or Nelson Nash. Yeah. So I was always a student of personal finance and read everything I could, and all over the place. And finally I was like, all right, it's like $12, the Kindle version. So I bought it, and man, it literally blew my mind. I think I read it twice that first night, and then I just devoured everything I could find on the topic and changed the strategy of how I flow money through my own life and my family's life. And over time, I was like, I just kept telling everybody about that, and then I kept sending them to somebody else. And finally, after a little while, you only have to do that so many times to be like, why don't I just train myself? Like, I'm setting them up on, I'm teeing all these people up for this guy to become their agent. Why don't I just become an agent and start working in the financial services world? And so that, led me to where I am now. It was a kind of a
And,
couple year process, but implementation in my own life and seeing how it changed my family's life.
and that's usually the best way to show people, and when you've done that and you do it right. Because I know a few people. I knew about it in 2003. There was a big push in our industry for people to start doing that. Take money out of your house, throw it in there, and do other things with it. But that fell apart for a lot of people.
Yeah,
But
maybe
if
the
they
way
would
they
have
did
done
it
it
wasn't.
right, if
Yeah,
they would have done it right, they would have still
that's
had
right.
their money, and it didn't matter what the house was at. It eventually would have came back. But
Yeah, I was during the era of loose mortgages or loose loans, right?
well,
Were
the
you in the
biggest pro
mortgage industry already
oh,
then?
yeah, I've been in the mortgage industry since, 93.
Okay, you've seen it
And
all. That was a wild time, man. That's mid
yeah, that the
2000s.
biggest problem with that was if you ever watched the movie The Big Short, you understand what happened. It was the bond rating agencies that messed everything up. If they would have rated them properly, not as triple A's, but as the D's or F's or whatever they were, nobody would have bought them. And we would never had that program because nobody could afford
Mhm.
the rate. They would be too expensive.
Yeah.
And that was where those are who should have went to jail, those guys.
Yeah.
Out of all
But
the
they're
people who
connected,
should
right?
have went to jail, who did wrong, they were the ones who did the wrong.
And none of them went to jail, huh?
No.
Yeah.
Some people went, for stated income loans and stuff like that, but not no, the people who really were the problems didn't go. And that's what you have to realize. They changed the laws in the mortgage industry to protect everybody. But once something falls apart like that, we learn and we'll never do those type of loans again because of what it did. But what they've done now is people can't do private money on personal residence, which that saved a lot of people losing their homes in the past. Now they can't
Yeah.
use those. Yeah.
Yeah, man, if the market will take the lessons that need to be learned, right? If we
Mhm.
would just let the free market take care of itself, it would, and it will.
Well, that's why interest rates went up before the
Mhm.
Fed did anything because they're like, "Hey, idiot, you guys aren't doing anything. Get moving. You're too slow." And then they did 5% in a 6-month period. That was just a lot.
Yeah, it was too late was the problem.
Mhm. Well,
They kept
that
them
there's 2
artificially low for
reasons.
so long.
That's part of it, but the other problem is if you I talk about it on a family. If a family's on a budget, but only the wife's on the budget, it doesn't work. And that's the
That's right.
problem. We have the Fed trying to get everybody on a budget, and you have this government who says, I don't need to be on a budget. We can spend everything because if we spend it and create the programs, you can't take them away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then the
that's
Fed
the
ends up
problem.
just funding it anyway.
Well, yeah. Well, they're going to start buying mortgage-backed securities here. You watch, because nobody else will.
And how do you see that ending?
Well, and the reason I'm saying that is because, all right, this is going to be political. I'm sorry, but the whole thing with Trump being arrested, the whole conviction and everything has
Yep.
made us look like we're a third world country. We now can't. And I was told said this other day on my radio show. You know how you're in a socialist society is when they take out a political opponent by putting him in court and getting him, or pretty much what they did to him. So that's where we are right now. And that means nobody wants to touch our stuff because we're not the country that we used to be. So they won't be buying on mortgage-backed securities. They won't buy the long bonds, the 10-year, the 20-year, the 30-year, any of those. We just set ourselves up to fail.
Yeah, and I don't blame them.
No,
If
no,
I'm on the outside looking in, I don't want to buy any of that either.
not with, again, we talked about earlier. It's important to have the right I say this on the show. If this was a Republican, government, I would complain just as much. It has nothing to do with which party's in power. This has to do with having somebody who has no idea what they're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's been made clear and evident for the last, well, actually 50 some years now, but especially the last couple.
What, that they don't know what they're doing?
Well, I'm talking about the person in charge at the top of the list there.
Who's in
Wednesday,
charge? Who's in
wow,
charge?
yeah, he's not, but you're right on that. Good point. I don't know.
Well,
I
that's
don't
the
know
thing
who's
is,
in charge
there
anymore.
hasn't been. You wanna fix the system, just get term limits put in. Throw it in one of those 1,000-page bills, slide in term limits. They never read it anyway.
Yeah, I don't have any faith in that happening.
No, none
It's all
of
about
us.
going back to constitutional principles, man. The state constitutions and the law. I think that's the thing that Trump's attorneys missed was everything he did. Who cares? I don't care what case law is. Where does it stand on the law? Where does it stand on fundamental rights? They could have easily overturned that, in my opinion. But that's a long discussion on a whole another topic.
Well, that's it's the problem is if you're an outsider, you get treated differently than insiders, and then we'll just leave it
Yeah,
at that. Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
If you're an insider, you can never do any wrong. He's a dad who's looking out for his son. He's just worried about his son.
Right, right. We'll see how the next court case with the son goes. Right.
Oh yeah, what do you mean? Let's put it in Delaware.
Yeah. Is it in Wilmington?
It's in the smallest town you could possibly get, and they're all Democrats.
Yeah, it's funny. It's all sham, which is one of the things that led me to what I do is if I could talk about it since we're even on the politics side a little bit, like as the as the madness of the world in 2020 happened, and if you were paying attention and you came to the same logical conclusions that I think at least I did, and I think a lot of people did, was that almost everything they're telling us is a lie. As especially as it pertains to the pharmaceutical industry and to public health. And you start looking at that and you go, none of this makes any damn sense. So if you start questioning everything, if you hadn't already at that point, well, would they just be making up things only in this one sector? Or is 85% of what we're told in the financial world a lie? Is 85% of what we're told in the educational world, those institutions, a lie? So if you hadn't already asked those questions, and I feel like I was always a natural skeptic, like you probably should be answering those questions after what we've experienced in the last 4 years of our lives. And so that really propelled me in the business to start diving deep into the financial side and see what else is a sham. Like government, for example, creates a problem, which is onerous taxation. And so what do? They create a 401k, which is a lot of people don't even realize, they don't even know what 401k stands for. It's just a creature of the tax code. It's section 401-K or .K. And so they create this problem of onerous taxation, and then they give you the solution to defer taxes. Aren't you a little bit suspicious? And so you start diving down all these worlds. And I'm not against 401ks, but it's just, if you start thinking about all the corruption and all the lies and all the deceit that we just experienced, like where else is that happening in the institutions that coming at us? Which which only strengthened my resolve towards private contracts, which is what infinite banking is.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you look at the inflation rate. It's currently not the inflation rate that it was back years and years ago. People don't understand that, houses are too inflationary. So let's take that out. Let's take everything out that's inflationary. And then that's how we come up with the CPI, PPI, and all those other ones, which is
Yeah,
ridiculous. Yeah.
they're all fake metrics.
Yeah. Is a true inflation rate we have now is people would be freaking out if they knew what it really was.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked at what it is like through shadow stats. I used to read that a lot, and I haven't looked at what they're projecting the actual inflation is. But excuse me, I just saw a poll that said 82% of Republicans, 70 something percent of independents, and over 60% of Democrats thought we had a major inflation problem. It averaged out to 70 some percent of people polled. So The American public knows they're being lied to. They're feeling it. Yeah. How can you not feel it? I have 4 kids. I pay more in groceries now than I do in my mortgage cost.
Yeah. Well, people don't realize everything went up. It's never gonna go back down. Deflation
No.
goal right now is just saying it's only going up 3%, but the 55% it went up already, it's not that's never gonna go down. It's gonna stay
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
so what are some ways to defeat that? Or is the
Own
question people should
houses,
be asking. Hmm?
own real estate.
Real estate's one a phenomenal way, and it's a part of what I teach in infinite banking, which, since I didn't really talk about what it is, but I teach people that with we have an abysmal savings rate in America, which is the major problem. One of the major problems. I think I didn't see May's data yet. I think it was April. The last I read, it was like 3.2% was the savings rate in America, which I get. I don't get. We need to save more, but the inflation, if when the prices of everything and the effect of the inflated currency is hitting everybody's homes, they can't save as much. That makes a little bit of sense, but it was only like 5% before that, less than that, 4%. So it's still a problem. So first, people aren't
Yeah, but the
saving, and
hold
then
on, wait. The only time it was any more than that was during the
2020
pandemic
during the
when
pandemic,
everybody got
yeah,
all this extra cash to stay home and they put it all in their savings, and then they had all this money, and then they used it
yep.
all to survive.
Yeah, and they couldn't go out to eat, and they couldn't go out and do fun things. The entertainment costs all went down, so that money just stacked up. You're right. That's the first time it exceeded 10% since I think the 70s, early 70s, right around the gold standard time. I can't remember the exact year, but it's been bad,
Well, don't
you
worry,
know.
we're
And
going you'll be able to relive the '70s here soon, so don't worry about it.
I didn't get to live in the first time. I was born in '81, so
No, I'm just
I guess
saying,
I'm
no, that's I
looking
didn't
forward to it.
yeah, and like you said, how many people know about inflation now? The last election we had 2 year, whenever it was, inflation hadn't been here in 42 years. So unless you were
Yeah,
in your early 50s or and older, you had no idea what inflation was.
yeah,
Now
that's my whole life.
people understand what inflation is because they had to live through it for 2 years or more to understand how bad it is.
That's right. And I never I you're speaking exactly to me. I'll be 43 this month. Um, so I've never lived it. I
Right.
because of what I've studied, I understand it. I understand what it actually is. It's not price increases. It's an increase in currency and why it's happening. But yeah, we've never lived it. You're right. So half of Americans have never seen an inflationary environment. At least half, if not more. I don't know the metrics
Yeah,
on that.
and that's
It's pretty
why
wild.
people yeah.
But the way to beat it is like what I teach in infinite banking is we save and store our money via premiums specifically designed to give us a lot of cash value in those whole life insurance contracts. And then we use that money, we leverage that money to get it you working elsewhere. So real estate, I think, is the perfect marriage. You know, talking to you with that being your world. So while our money is being leveraged from whole life, it continues to grow, earn interest and dividends. At the same time, it's over here in real estate with all the benefits you get in that. So if you do it as an investment, you have the depreciation, appreciation, mortgage pay down, tax perks, and hopefully cash flow. So you've got at least 5 ways your dollar's making money there. Wow, it's also making money here. And if we can keep multiplying the use of the same dollars, it's the only way to defeat this inflationary monster that's been created by the Fed and the government.
Yeah. What I run into now, because I focus on 3 areas, which is veterans, business owners, and then reverse mortgages. And the reason I'm doing reverse mortgage is because I've seen so many people hurt now who are on fixed incomes and they don't have any other choices to do this. I have a lady right now who um she's big house, no running out of cash, and it's paid off. And now she's going to sell it to buy something smaller. But then I showed her how she could keep 300 grand and put it away so that she has some money for the future. Otherwise, she has to pay cash for the place, and she won't go any lower. So don't even get me to start to try to get her even a smaller house. I already tried that. This is the only way I could help her. But the only reason I do those is and they're only for people to get their dignity back. Nothing else. I don't do them for everybody. I only do them for people who really need them.
Yeah, I don't, well,
And if
I
they
mean,
did something like this, they would never need that.
that's true. And because this creates a saving strategy and it creates access to capital. So all the people you're talking about here, even when you talk to veterans, if they make it all the way to retirement, there's the savings. or excuse me, the pension. I just lost the name of it. I'm tired too. I've had too many calls today. Um, on the pension benefit plan, where you can take a reduction for survivor benefit plans. There it is. Really, that's just an insurance policy. So you're paying every month out of your monthly stipend, your monthly retirement check, to ensure that your wife can get half, or it's like 55%. Um, it's really just an insurance policy. If you properly position ahead of that, the problem is access to capital. So what your problem is, when you pass, you've left no access to capital for your wife, so you have to pay for this little thing to then leave her 25% at that point, because we're already at half on our retirement. Cut that in half for her. It's usually not even enough for them to live on. So access to capital, problem for veterans. Why do most businesses fail? Not because they have a bad idea. Sometimes they're still in a spool up stage in those first couple of years of getting their marketing and their plans together, and the income doesn't come along. They run out of what? Money. They don't have
Am I supposed
access
to
to
answer this
capital.
for you, or are you just going to
Yeah, I'm
answer?
just saying,
Okay.
it's just like they're.
I was
I'm sorry, you
focused
can
on the
answer.
fact that you can do everything right, and then the government changes.
That can happen.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
can happen.
Yeah. I mean, you can do everything right and have money and everything, and then things change and this whole thing. So when the pandemic was here and we were putting people on low interest rates, I said we are going to pay for this later. People will not be selling their homes. We're going to go from 85% existing home sales down to like 35%. Everybody's like, "You're crazy." No, people are going to get really low interest rates, and they're going to not want to move because of that. It's going to be like abusive relationship. They're going to be stuck in this low interest rate, need to do stuff, but can't do it because they don't want to lose that interest rate. That's abusive relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% right. That's exactly where I am too. Like, I would never sell this house that I'm standing in right now. I would rent it before I'd ever sell it.
And that's
I
okay.
move, I'll start over. Yeah, it's fine, but I
Most
mean, it's
people
like,
won't even
why would I
do
give this
that.
up?
Yeah, most
Yeah,
people won't even do that. They stay when they need more
they'll just
room.
stay.
Yeah, and they pile the kids and they do all this other stuff. No, you still need to keep doing what you're doing. Just rent it and make the difference up to help you on the next one.
Yeah, do it smarter.
Yeah.
Which there again, there's that multiplicity of money, which is the way we're gonna overcome bad government policy.
Yeah. Well, I don't
It's
know if we could ever replace any this total government we have. So I have a feeling that this government's trying to get us to do a January 6th again. Not that January 6th was really anything, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing. I didn't watch the whole 200 hours of video or whatever it was, but I'm just saying, there was only a few. From what I understand, there was nothing major. It wasn't 20, days and days and days of rioting and destroying stores like other people did.
Yeah, I hope that if there's another event, they at least take away the velvet ropes and make it appear somewhat real this time.
And stop getting the people out there from the FBI telling people what to do and how to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
And then
Yeah.
they do, oh, we can't find that person. Really? You guys are
Oh,
FBI. You can find them.
the only 12 people you can't find are all the ones with a haircut like mine. That's weird.
All right. So what's your plan for the future? Do you guys do any get masterminds or any kind of stuff like that? Have you started any of that kind of stuff for people to come and learn that your product and what you do?
So we haven't really started any masterminds yet. We have a podcast coming. It's actually going to be launched within the next 2 weeks. So we've recorded about 10 episodes so far, and we're working on the whole production and push phase for our first launch. It'll be called Remnant Finance. Beyond that, most of what we do is more one-on-one. So we help people obviously to get some education around wealth, develop a saving strategy. We help people keep more of what they earn, so ultimately they can earn more on what they keep. In that way, we focus on infinite banking, which is proper utilization of whole life insurance, and we can help people with legacy planning. That we have some partners who are qualified and well licensed to do living trusts in all 50 states. So we help people set up and keep as much away from the government as they possibly can and protect their wealth and their legacy and their generational planning. So we're just building out the business. I've got a business partner who was a Navy pilot as well. Uh, so he and I we're focused on this next phase of life. So instead of spending any more years being part of the destruction apparatus, we're We want to help people build.
Well, the military still built things. It just got destroyed afterwards. So,
Or left behind.
well, they were left behind, got destroyed. Yeah, well, we won't get into that one. But I'm talking about we
I think
do
we could
go
go
in
on and
and
on.
do schools and roads and other stuff,
Yeah,
and
we
then
do.
other people
We
come
do.
in and destroy it after we leave. So we do build things even as a military. So we
Yeah,
don't
we do.
just
But we've primarily probably a lot of our just natural network. I'd say we've primarily served. Probably 80% of our clients are veterans or still active folks in the military. So it's probably our favorite demographic. That and business owners, we're pretty closely aligned there. A lot of folks getting into real estate investing. It's funny that all the things you said are kind of our ideal clients and the people we talk with a lot. So
yeah, everybody watching now that TikTok and everything's out, that people are like following. I have clients now who are telling me how they want to do ADUs and convert, garages into an additional living unit and all these things, stuff I would never do, but they want to do it so that they can afford the house. I get it. When you're younger, you can do stuff like that. But as you get older, I don't want to share my property with anybody else.
I don't either. No, not a chance.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
nuts.
yeah. But your first property, I mean, especially if you're a veteran, you should be trying to buy, even with your VA loan, a duplex,
Yeah,
triplex, or a fourplex. As long as you can qualify for
absolutely.
the full payment, who cares? Do it. Rent it.
I agree. And sit there for 2 years, live in one, and after the 2 year
2
point,
years. You only got to do
off
a
up.
year.
Is it one?
Yeah, the loans say you'll be there for 1 year. Now, if things
Okay.
change, like, my job, I have to take a job somewhere else, or, this commute's killing me and I wanna move closer, you can do those things. You just have to I tell people document it, just that
Yeah.
things have changed, that if you go in there, with the intent, "I'm only gonna be here a month," that's mortgage fraud. If you go in there going, "I'm gonna be here according to what the loan docs say, 1 year," and then something happens, don't worry about it. Just document what happened. No one's going to come after you.
Yeah. Now, with that strategy though, you can you get a second VA loan typically if you're still underneath the financing capabilities
Yeah,
for
as
the
long
next
as
primary residence?
yeah, you probably won't be able to get. So it's based off of how much eligibility is left, right? You have to look
Mhm.
at we do a calculation, because I mean right now the Blue Water Act basically changed it to where you can go to 2.5 million with no money down on VA. However, when they look at your eligibility, that's a jumbo where they look at, okay, how much did you use on the property you have right now? I had a guy who came from North Carolina. He only used 200,000. He got a house here for 400,000. He could have went a little bit more, but if you say you have 100,000, you're short, you have to put 25% of that down.
Yeah.
So, but for most people so a lot of people will buy a house VA or whatever, and then refinance it and move to, but you don't have to. You don't
Yeah.
have to.
You just said it just depends on what you have left in eligibility. Makes
Right, and
sense.
that's what we figure it out. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a calculation, so
Yeah.
it's very easy to figure out how much you can go buy afterwards. Why do you wanna go buy again? But you'd
Who,
have to
me?
move there. Yeah, you'd have to move there. I said, "Do you wanna
Yeah.
buy again?" Yeah.
We actually are considering it. We might move here again soon.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll
and
call you if we
just
do.
be I can't help everybody, but I can get you hooked up with the right people. I focus mainly in California. I don't do
Yeah.
loans everywhere just because of the fact that I have enough business here in California. Why do I, other states? So I specialize in certain areas in my state where where I live, plus Tuolumne County, Calaveras County, which is up in the foothills, mountainous areas, and those are very unique situations. Like I'll have an off-grid property, which is normal for the area, which you can do VA. Most people think you can't. You can. If it's the appraisal just has to say it's normal for the area. So it's up to the
Oh,
appraiser.
nice.
Yeah. So as long as it's normal, then not a big deal. Because everybody's freaking out. Well, how could you do that? Because I'm smarter than you, and this is how you can do it, right? I'm one of
And if
those
you've built some
guys.
networks, the
I'm one of those
appraisers
guys.
understand that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also, I'm one of those guys who don't take no for an answer. I find a way to do it.
That's pretty typical of most veterans, I'd say, wouldn't
Exactly.
don't you
Yeah.
think?
Because that's what we had to do forever. Figure a way to get it done. right?
Get it done with less.
Yeah. Oh, I always hated that. That's why I got on the medical field in the Navy, because I got tired of doing it. Every year was more with less.
Yeah, I don't think it's changed much either. I think we're continuing down that trend. I mean, especially, aviation community is doing it big time right now in the military. More with less, with
Yeah.
fewer pilots. Yeah, we're not hitting a crunch in the guard here, but across the spectrum, there it's been a big they've had a big retention crisis going on,
Mhm.
especially with the airlines hiring like gangbusters.
Well, not only that, with the all of a sudden everything went woke, and so the
That too.
people who've been in forever are like, okay, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, it's getting interesting. I'd say that in the 22 years I've been in, it is a very different military in just 22 years. So I can't. I'm sure every cycle of that just keeps. Everybody could say that, if I could
Mhm.
go back another 22, I wouldn't recognize it. And then another 22. I think about when my dad was in Vietnam. It's like the stories he told me. I can't even fathom that world existing anymore.
Yeah. I mean, there needs to be a good, we need people in the military because right now, from what I understand, my son's in the army. He was an airborne medic. Now he's just a medic up in Washington. He was in a cavalry, and I guess they're closing those. That's up. No longer they're going to have cavalry. Um, so, uh, and I went to his boot camp and all the other stuff. Just watched everything going. This is ridiculous what they can get away with now. You know.
Yeah,
Times are changing,
yeah,
though. People need to, it needs to go back to where you conform to the military, not the military conform to you.
yeah. I don't know what that shift was. Have you ever read the book called The Fourth Turning or The Fourth Turning is Here?
Mm-mm.
I can't remember the author's name right now. I want to say the last name is Howe, but don't quote me on that. Howe. Look up the fourth turning, but he talks about cycles. It's historical cycles. Every 80 to 100 years, we as humans, a massive cycle shift. And like the end of the last cycle, yeah, it always ends with a crisis. And so we're kind of like at the
You're
end of our current
you're
cycle.
talking about the generational stuff. Is that what you're talking
It's
about? Like,
partially
yeah,
generational,
yeah,
yeah, but
like
like so World War II.
the greatest generation was World War One, right? That they and then after that was the baby boomers who had it a little bit easier. Then after that was the next generation, and then we have the people now who had it so that was now where there's supposedly a struggle coming right now, and these people are that again that same generation that was the greatest generation. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah, it's sort of that cycle, but I mean, he really gets into the historical aspect of it over the decades and defines the generations and defines the cycles and what happens, and it's repetitive. I mean, it truly is cyclical, and it's the same thing, but infused with new technology and new crises, but the same pattern. So it's
Mhm.
pretty interesting. So it's like, well, we're standing here facing this looming economic crisis right now, and potential World War III, as everybody's talking about, and all the other crises and social crises. When all this stuff comes to a head, like it has in the past, there will always be leaders and there will be new social order. And usually when you come out the other side of that, there is a kind of a social conviction where people have come together as a community, as a nation. Even think to, I know you're a little bit older than me, but if you even think about the generation or two before us, I heard on one of your shows that your dad was in Vietnam as well, I
Mhm.
think. So our dads were about the same generation. If you think of their generation and back, like think about all the men's clubs and the fraternal organizations. There was like this natural social order that came out of that 30s and 40s era. And I don't know, it might not look like that again, but somehow we form a unity. So there's a lot of hope for the future as well. As much as I think we're going to experience some pain when
Right.
this crisis comes to a head, like we're going to come out the other side of it.
Yeah. Well, and I always tell people, um, if you watch the movie Stripes, right, that's
Yeah.
basically the 70s, right? And you have those people were not the best people that you wanted in a unit. That's basically what we had over the last 10 years.
Mhm.
Right. And I'm like, it's a cycle. It's like the 70s, and that's where we're at. But I was doing a podcast, my other one, Inner Edison, and a guy I was talking to, he brought that up, the same thing about how we're shifting into that now there's going to be a huge crisis and it's going to change and people are going to step up and you're going to see that change. And then the next generation is going to be like the boomer generation. The next generation is going to be like the Gen Zs. Yeah.
We'll be gone for that.
X's. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you think about it, when there is a crisis, who steps up usually? It's usually a strong people of moral fiber and sound mind and, good convictions in whatever it is they're doing, that they're people that get things done. And that's who people naturally follow, right?
Mhm.
The best
Mhm.
leaders in the world are those people of those kind of characteristics. So they still exist. And it's not going to be you and me. If I'm 43, you're older than me.
Older.
It's not going to be us. It's going to be somebody, it's going to be people in their 20s, early 30s, mid 30s. It's going to be people younger. It's going to be
It's gonna
millennials
be with my
and
son. My son is
early,
22.
and your
I can
son.
see it already that his
Yeah,
22 and it's that 22 and younger has changed. The
they are
26 and 27 is that one that needs to change, which aren't gonna
kind of a
change.
mess.
Yeah, totally. And that's our fault for babying them.
Yeah, I think your
Just
son's
just go to
generation, I agree
school
with that.
just go to school and don't worry about working. That's unfortunately what a lot
Yeah,
of us did. We don't want them to struggle like we had to. No, we let them struggle.
you
So,
should let them struggle.
alright.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think your son's generation is the one that's gonna turn the country, turn the world, turn everything.
Yeah.
And I think they're seeing the illusion of what modern life has become. I think they're questioning so many things that we've grown up with and accepted as normal.
Right, everything. They question
Everything.
everything.
And
That's
I'm
why it's
glad.
like they're the wor some people I interviewed a guy and he was talking about he's older than me and he's still hiring people and he's like, "We had to change to where the people, to hire the people these days, whether or not you have to change. You can't
Yeah.
stay as structured like, oh, by the way, it's a privilege to work here.' No, it's not. It's,
Yeah.
you know, that's kinda, like when went in the workforce, it was like, it's a privilege to work here. And it's like, now it's not a privilege. People don't want to work. There's so many ways you can make additional forms of income that not to be 9 to 5 at a job.
Yeah. This little, 6x3 or whatever it is, device here, um, enables people to not have to be a slave to one job and treat it like it's a privilege to be there because I can find a way to earn income right there.
Right.
People do it all over the world.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's amazing. I got on TikTok, had viral videos, and now I get hit up all the time to do stuff with people, and sell things, do this and do that. And you're like, what? I can do this. I can make what? You got to stop thinking the old way. It's
Yeah.
something. Yeah. You know what it is? It's if you look back at Japan when they got hit with the bomb, and then how that society changed and how they connected with everything, and everybody sold certain things, and everybody did everything after that. And everything changed for them. That's basically what. And I don't mean to bring up such a horrible thing, but it's just how their society changed and how their economy changed to where they did everything and they sold things and bought things and did certain things differently than everything else. And that's where we are now, where with that phone, you can do whatever you want. You can start a business, you can start multiple businesses, you can do affiliate marketing, you can do all these different things that you never could do before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, these Zoom conferences have changed the world. Like I do business with people all over the country,
Yeah.
any state I want. I couldn't have done that 15 years ago as easily. I mean, there was phones, but it doesn't work as well. This works
No,
better.
ever since the pandemic and we were starting to use all this stuff that we use for, I mean, podcasts, think alone the podcasts. I talk to people everywhere. When my book came out 2 years ago or 2 Februarys ago, Financial Freedom, Building Personal Wealth Through Home Ownership, that I was getting on podcasts at 5 o'clock in the morning and there and, all over the world. I mean, Australia and other places where we could never have done that before.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of great things happening. I know it, we kind of like we went down that little avenue of disdain, I'll call it, talking about politics and all the shit going on in the world. But the truth is, man, there's a lot to be optimistic about.
yeah.
We might hit a pain point here in the future, but we're gonna come out the other side and there's a lot to be optimistic about.
Just people need to come out and vote this time. See,
I sure hope they do.
yeah, because in our county, the last election, only 19% came out to vote. The election before that, 58% came out to vote. That's a problem.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but
Yeah, because I
I
mean, otherwise, don't complain. I mean, people complain, but they don't come out to vote. You got to come out to vote to make it count, so that we can make these changes. Otherwise, don't complain about all these executive orders and 10 million people across our borders.
do you think your vote counts?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wonder how if there was a good bit of
Well,
fraud or not.
I want to go back to paper ballots, though, back
I
to
do
where it
too.
used to be. Yeah. And see in state of California, then we'll go after this. State of California, they don't have to check a signature in that county. Our county does, but the Secretary of State, who is nuisance best buddy, they changed it to where they don't want you to check the signature. That is wrong. We should
It
have
is
to
wrong.
to do anything, we have to have our ID. Why don't we have to have ID to vote?
Yeah, you have to go get a special ID to have to for the constitutional provision of the right to bear arms if you want to do it concealed. I have to go get a special identification, but I don't need any identification to vote. So it makes no sense.
All right, Brian, how do people find you if they want to find you?
You can find me at remnantfinance.com, REMNANT finance.com. You can email info@remnantfinance.com. You can look me up on Twitter. It'd be Moody or Mood 135. That's Mood 135.
You need to make that
Those are probably
easier.
the easiest ways. And our podcast, Remnant Finance, will be out. I hope it should be inside 2 weeks. So
All right,
you
well,
can
let
look for
us
that.
know. I can put it in the notes because this will be out in a few months.
Okay.
Yeah, and so let me know when it's out, and I'll put it in the notes when we release this. All right, sir.
Perfect. All
Thanks,
right.
Brian.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Ed.
coming on the show. I really appreciate you being here and talking with me. And I know we kind of got off on a few different subjects, but that's okay. That's what it's
That's
about.
all right. It was a good conversation.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you next week.